Welcome to Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz, and we are joined today by Kathy Bernier. She is a member of the Wisconsin State Assembly. She is one of 22 women in the Assembly out of 99. There are 11 out of 33 in the State Senate who are women. Talk to me about being a woman in this august body, the Wisconsin State Legislature.
Well, I think it's an honor and a privilege to represent the constituents of the 68th Assembly District. I began involved in politics and running for office in 1998, and I think women do a fine job of representing their citizens.
And I want to talk about your first decision to run for office, because I have read some reports and studies and articles that talk about the decision to run for office and the differences that men make and the differences that women make. When a man runs for office, he seems to take the decision more lightly. And, you know, it's an important decision, but he doesn't say, oh, I don't have this in my resume or that in my resume, I can't raise this money. Whereas women, and again, this is the studies I read, are much more circumspect. What am I going to do? I don't have this master's degree, and I don't know if I can raise this amount of money. And it seems to be that women think they need to be perfect to run, whereas men, they don't think they need to be perfect. Is that a surprise to you to hear that?
It is not a surprise,
Right.
and I found myself in that very same position.
Interesting.
I wanted to run for county clerk. I saw that there was an issue there, and I went and got my bachelor's degree before I felt confident enough to run for county clerk. And county clerk, you really don't need to have a degree of any sort. Matter of fact, for the state assembly, you don't need to have a degree.
Our governor, Scott Walker, doesn't have a college degree.
Good example.
And he could be president.
That's
so
right.
it just goes to show you. So, but why is it that women think, and again, I'm making a generalization, of course, that they need to be perfect. It has to be the perfect time with the perfect credentials in the perfect storm.
Well, it may be in our DNA,
Right.
but in our genetics.
Right.
But I think the fact of the matter is when you're a woman and you enter what used to be considered a man's world, and
Right.
still is according to the numbers, that when you go into that world, you want to excel. You want to achieve your best in that environment. And so you're going to work very hard to show your worth in the legislature or wherever you enter that man's world.
The good news, though, is that you're working with women.
Absolutely.
To try to show them the way towards elective office. You are the chair in Wisconsin of the National Foundation for Women Legislators. What an honor it must be for you to be that champion. Talk to me about what you're doing to convince women, you know, the place for a woman is in the state capitol.
Well, our association has been around for 76 years.
Nice.
It's the oldest organization for women in the nation's history. And it's had its ups and downs. We're rebuilding it. We now have state directors in almost every state.
Nice.
And when I take on a task, I generally don't sit on my laurels.
No.
No. I decided that if I'm going to be a state legislator or a state director, then I am going to do something with that. And we have a convention coming up.
Right.
I created a state symposium for the NFWL. I have sponsors for that symposium.
And as I understand it, this organization is nonpartisan, bipartisan.
Absolutely.
And so I want to talk about a nonpartisan, bipartisan. My personal perception. I have traveled around the country. I've interviewed members of legislatures from different states. I've had the honor of interviewing Congress members, women and men. What I perceive is that women do bipartisanship pretty well. Maybe better than their male counterparts. Is that fair?
It is fair. We do. I think it may be in our nature, or the fact that maybe because we're nurturers, we've raised children, we realize that there's a whole lot of differences in life that we can negotiate or come to an agreement on. But the fact of the matter is we tend to be more bipartisan than the men do.
And you had reminded me that women only got the vote less than 100 years ago.
Yes.
Yet, in the state of Wisconsin, we look at leadership of the Senate and the Assembly, Democrat and Republican. Women are peppered throughout leadership. on the Republican side in the Senate, there are, I think, 2 leaders. On the Democratic side, 3 leaders. On the Assembly Republican side, 2 leaders. Assembly Democrats, 3 leaders. I mean, women are there.
We are there. We are there. And I think we've proven ourselves. We've proven our leadership. And what I want to do with the National Foundation of Women Legislators is get to individuals within our communities in the state of Wisconsin and talk to women, young women, to talk to them about their capability in running for office.
And let's talk about the whole notion of public service. It seems as if America goes through ebbs and flows in terms of how we perceive our elected officials. And right now, I'm not so sure we're perceiving, most generally, our elected officials in the best sense. And what then can happen is we don't aspire to run for elective office, when I have to think it's got to be one of the most gratifying jobs you've ever had. And so how do you talk to young women about the personal assets and the personal benefits you receive in serving your community?
The most gratifying part of my job is constituent services. Right. Communicating with my constituents, addressing problems that they may have and concerns that they may have. It may or may not require legislation, but I'll tell you, when it requires legislation and you accomplish that, to address a problem or an issue within your constituency or statewide, as far as that goes, it's a good feeling.
I was interviewing a member on the state Senate side, and he was telling me, he's a new member, that the issue that came to the fore in his district was the raffles that are held by local community groups. I mean, something as simple as raffles, and the regulations needed to be eased and streamlined. He got it passed. It was the best thing he'd ever done for his community.
Absolutely.
It could be the little things that really matter and really count. I want to ask about women who run for office and party selection. Wisconsin's not unique by any stretch. And Wisconsin, like the state, like the nation, women tend to run as Democrats versus Republicans. Maybe that trend will reverse at some point. I think when women first started running, they were Republicans, when the women got the right to vote. What's your sense of that, especially being chair of a nonpartisan organization?
I think there's some preconceived notions about if you're a woman, you should be of this party. If you're of a certain race, you should be of that party. And we need to break through all barriers in regard to race, gender, and all of that we're individuals and we can choose for ourselves what party best suits our personal beliefs.
And one would hope women would be at the table of all parties. I mean, it's to the benefit of, for everyone, essentially. I mean, if one group is only focused on one party, there's not enough discussion at the table.
Right.
And so as you're talking to young women, I should say, about running for office, does the issue of party come up, or really you're focused on public service?
Well, primarily we're focused on public service.
Right.
And if someone asks about party and what the differences are, I always find it fun to educate people on how the platforms are created, and that it starts at the local level, the county party, and then up to the state, and then up to the national platform. And so, for some people, it's one issue that they choose their party preference. For others, it's a gamut of things. But I make no assumptions. I believe that the Republican Party is good for me. I embrace the conservative values, and that's the party I hold.
I want to say, as the father of 2 daughters, thank you for what you're doing for the women and girls in our nation. We appreciate it. Her name is Kathy Bernier. She's a member of the Wisconsin State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerantz. It's Charter Local Edition.